We're going to talk now about 4 different concepts of oppression. These are institutional discrimination, prejudice, and ideological racism. And once again, I want to give you a little bit of a framework for thinking about these concepts. I want to organize them into a 4-square table with an axis that refers to either thought or action, and the other axis referring to individual level or societal level. So the grid looks like this. And for each of these axes, there's a different concept for understanding how oppression may occur in society. We'll fill in the grid as we discuss each concept. The first concept I want to discuss is institutional discrimination. This is an action, something that actually takes place. What is different about this than just plain discrimination is that it happens at the societal level. Good examples of this are poll taxes, and that's referring to a payment of poll taxes as a prerequisite to the registration for voting in a number of states. The tax emerged in some states of the U.S. in the late 19th century as part of the Jim Crow laws. After the right to vote was extended to all races, a number of states enacted poll taxes as a device for restricting voting rights. The laws often included a grandfather clause, which allowed any adult male whose father or grandfather had voted in a specific year prior to the abolition of slavery to vote without paying the tax. These laws, along with unfairly implemented literacy tests and extra-legal intimidation, achieved the desired effect of disenfranchising African American and Native American voters, as well as poor whites. Another example of institutional discrimination were literacy tests, which required voters to read something. Often the test was administered completely unfairly, so that a white person had to read something like "Mary Had a Little Lamb," which they could memorize if they couldn't read, while a minority group member had to read the Emancipation Proclamation. This is depicted in the opening scene of Selma, which is a great movie that everyone in this class should try to watch. Another example of institutional discrimination is redlining, which refers to banks that draw red lines around certain areas of the city, generally the more impoverished areas that have higher minority populations, and the red lines capture the districts that the banks feel are high risk, and they charge a higher interest rate for these areas and require higher amounts of money down to borrow against a property. And finally, I want to mention peremptory challenges in the judicial system. Peremptory challenges refer to a right in the jury selection for the attorneys to reject a certain number of potential jurors without stating a reason. Other potential jurors may be challenged for cause, i.e., by giving a good reason why they might be unable to reach a fair verdict. But the challenge will be considered by the presiding judge and may be denied. A peremptory challenge allows the attorneys to veto a potential juror just on a hunch. A peremptory challenge can be a major part of jury selection, but what was happening in jury selection was that the prosecutors were able to use the peremptory challenges to create all-white juries. This kind of action was ruled to be unconstitutional by the United States Supreme Court in the 1980s. The case that the U.S. Supreme Court took and ruled on happened to come out of Jefferson County, too, and it was challenged by the local public defender in Louisville. So these are all examples of institutional discrimination. Remember, it's an action that occurs, and it's at the societal level. Discrimination occurs at the individual level, too. It can follow ideologies, but it's a personal decision that someone makes, and they take an action to conform to that personal decision. Discrimination is treatment or consideration of or making a distinction in favor of or against a person or a thing based on the group, the class, or the category of which that person or thing is perceived to belong, rather than on individual merit. So, an example is segregation in the United States, and the example is not allowing someone to sit at the lunch bar, as in the famous Woolworths case, or forcing someone to sit at the back of the bus, or to give up their seat to a white person, or refusing a person to go to a dining car on a train, when that's the only place to get a meal. There may be an underlying ideology, i.e., a belief system that drives the individual person's actions, but that action is still a decision and a personal behavior that the individual takes. Prejudice, on the other hand, is referring to a thought level, and generally emotions are tied to those thoughts. It occurs at the individual level. Prejudice is a prejudgment or forming an opinion before becoming aware of the relevant facts of a case. The word is often used to refer to preconceived, usually unfavorable judgments towards people or a person because of a gender, political opinion, a social class, age or disability, their religion, sexuality, race or ethnicity, language, nationality, or other personal characteristics. In this case, it refers to a positive or negative evaluation of another person based on their perceived group membership. Ideological racism is a belief system asserting that a particular group is inferior. Although individuals may subscribe to racist beliefs, the ideology itself is incorporated into the culture of the society and passed on from generation to generation. Ideological racism is more built into the fabric of society and generally goes unexamined by many of the majority group members. So, an example of this is Nazi Germany believing that the Jews were the problem and causing economic issues for the country, or the ideas that blacks were inferior and could not survive in society without a master to care for them, to justify slavery. So here is our chart filled in with the different concepts of oppression. I want to say a little more about institutional discrimination here. That is that the old systems have been dismantled. Things like poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses have been eliminated by the Voting Rights Act and other federal provisions that prevent them from being administered. But new kinds of institutional discrimination exist, and these are often economic in nature. Things like businesses that move away from the cities and leave behind urban blight, or what I mentioned before, redlining, which favors lending money at lower rates to areas that are predominantly white. And there are other ways in which institutional discrimination exists. Hiring and advancement decisions are made oftentimes on who knows who, which can be said to rely on the good old boy network that exists in many business areas. And sometimes employment decisions are made purely on the basis of education, what college someone went to, and that kind of decision can be riddled with class bias. And when entrance exams are skewed and based on middle-class youth norms, that is a built-in kind of bias as well.